Misfits, before we jump into today's episode, I want to share something very special with you. After hosting over 450 episodes of The Misfit Entrepreneur and sitting down with some of the world's top founders, investors, and high performers, I started to notice something. Different industries, different backgrounds, different paths, but the same patterns kept showing up. So I distilled those patterns into a short, powerful guide called The Misfit Code: 21 Uncomfortable Truths from 450 plus entrepreneurs. This isn't motivational fluff, it's not theory, and it's definitely not the recycled advice that you hear everywhere else. In fact, it's a fast-paced, practical playbook that you can read in one sitting and then apply immediately to help you execute better, raise your standards, break through to your next level. And if you know you're capable of more, or you feel like you've outgrown where you are, or if you're tired of knowing what to do but not executing consistently, this guide was created for you. You can download it for free right now by going to misfitentrepreneur.com/truths. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/truths. Grab the guide, read it in one sitting, and then come back and work through one misfit truth per day. All right, with that said, let's jump into today's episode. Hello, Misfit Entrepreneurs. This is Dave Lukas, and welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur, where it is our job to help you unleash your inner misfit and break through the higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best insight and information from the world's top entrepreneurs, with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. As a reminder, if you're new to watching us on our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below. Give this video a like and comment as well. We do our best to respond to all comments as timely as possible. This week's Misfit Entrepreneur is Garrett Gunderson. And if that name sounds familiar to our longtime Misfit Entrepreneur listeners, it should. Garrett was on the show several years ago, and I'm really thrilled to have him back because a lot has happened since. So for those of you that are meeting him for the first time, he's a New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestselling author of 10 books, including the #1 bestseller, Killing Sacred Cows. He grew up in coal country where money was tight, and he went on to build an 8-figure financial firm, hit the Inc. 500, and has spent his entire career as a financial advocate for entrepreneurs, really teaching them how to make, keep, and grow their money while actually enjoying life along the way. And I think that's really important distinction because a lot of people do one or the other. They don't do both. And it really, instead of sacrificing that 30 years, that people think of and hope for the best someday, right? He's been on the fly on the wall and closed door financial meetings with some of the wealthiest people on the planet. He's personally interviewed 23 billionaires, every one of them a business owner. But here's where I think the conversation is timely, and one of the reasons I want to have Garrett back on. He's just built his newest venture, Multiplier Family Office, and he's refreshingly honest that he tried to build it twice before and failed. And he's really cracked into something here that most entrepreneurs never do: how the ultra wealthy actually manage money, and why it has almost nothing to do with picking the right products and everything to do with really a coordinated team. And so today I want to dig into that, plus, what he's learned, about wealth, legacy, and building a life that you don't want to retire from, So Garrett, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit again?
Let's do this, man. I'm ready. I'm excited.
Well, it's great to have you on. And, I alluded to some of it, but, people, a lot of people may be hearing you or your story for the first time. So take 5 minutes or so and just tell us, how'd you get to where you're at?
So as you mentioned, I grew up in a coal mining town. My dad was a coal miner, one of the hardest workers. My grandfathers were coal miners. My great-grandfather was even a coal miner. He left Italy in 1913 to come to the United States, ended up in a small coal mining town in Utah just in time for this mine disaster. So he became a goat herd. Didn't even have his pregnant wife with him. Doesn't meet his daughter until she's a few years old. So, talk about really making a bold move to improve his family's life. And even my dad was when you're a kid growing up in a coal mining town and you're a teenager, they do what they can to recruit you into the mines because they pay better than anywhere else. And my dad's like, you're not going to the mine. You're going to figure something else out. And so I started washing cars, detailing, waxing when I was 15 years old. And then I won a third place at a business competition, came with $500. The next year I took first place, came with $1,000, then first place for the state, $5,000 when I was 17. I thought, man, that was a ton of money. I should invest it, but my mom wouldn't sign off as a custodian. So when I finally turned 18, the first investment I made was a bad one. Thank goodness it was only $70 a month and led me into this career by trying to figure out things and asking questions. I got offered an internship, which was a fancy term for bring your family and friends so we could peddle some mutual funds and life insurance to them. But when the market went down in 2000, that's when my journey really began, because now I couldn't just tell people, oh, you're in it for the long haul or the market's on sale. I was like, is this the best way? And because I was young, I was able to interview wealthy people and found out like what they did. And I got to see like behind closed door meetings of wealthy people that had very limited market exposure, but that's all I was selling. And I was like, well, wait, this person's worth $30 million and they have 5% in stocks. They've got all this real estate. They own businesses. It was like jarring. But what I really found was the first move that they make when they're successful is they start saving on tax, and they hire a team for that. And they start, getting brokerage accounts that they get lines of credit against, they get preferred interest rates. And, it was just like a different world. And I was fascinated by it. So that's how I kind of got my start at 19 years old. I got my first licenses, but then basically at 21 is when I really started to build a financial firm with a couple other young guys in their 30s. And we were just on this quest to like, how does money really work? And what do the wealthy do that's different than everybody else? And that meant eventually dropping licenses, partnering with attorneys and CPAs, and offering kind of like services that help businesses create more cash flow, not take cash flow from them, which is all I did the first few years,
Yeah. And what I love about your story too is, because we talked about this before, it's a lot of people think this stuff's out of reach, for them, like entrepreneurs with smaller businesses and stuff, where it's really not in a lot of ways. And you, granted, you've written 10 books about this, you built multiple companies about this, you've sold, and exited companies. So like talk about, because we'll start like high level and then we'll come down. So talk about like your focus with Multiplier Family Office, because that's really downstream from even where you were before. This is like somebody who's got a $200,000 or $300,000 business. Like this is what it's geared for. And so you've been open that you've tried to like pull this thing off twice before and it didn't work. So why didn't it work before? Why does it work now? Like tell us more about it and what entrepreneurs should know.
All right. So the first time it didn't work was because I thought I should own all these companies. Like I was like, okay, I'm going to provide full services. So I bought a property and casualty company. So we could do the car and the home and the liability and business owner policies. And I started a mortgage company, but it's so boutique that I don't have clout to get the best interest rates necessarily or get deals through. And then all of a sudden, as I'm building all this, I start getting distracted. I start getting too many moving pieces. And so, I had to just say, all right, I can't be the best at all these things. So we had to start referring things out. And as soon as you refer things out, you don't have visibility. So it lacks coordination. So if I refer to an attorney, but I'm not privy to all the conversation, does that attorney agree with the CPA that we're bringing in? And if they disagree, it's conflict for the client. Now the client becomes like a middle manager, or we do. And it just became increasingly difficult. So I ended up, 2008 being over leveraged because I'd read so many books saying real estate's the path to wealth. I didn't really love real estate. So I'm 100 plus properties. That is just the most painful conversations every day, because I'm talking to bankers and attorneys and property managers and maintenance people. There was no fun in it whatsoever. And it was distracting me from helping my clients. And when 2008 came, major correction in the market, it basically derailed me for a year. I was able to get through to the other side without declaring bankruptcy, but it took huge effort. I had two young kids, one born in 2005, one born in 2007. My wife is like, I barely see you. When you are here, you're not even present. You're just like exhausted. I didn't sign up for this. And so we figured it out, thank goodness. And she was patient with me. So I was like, all right, I've got to build this differently. So the second time around, in 2010, I basically, part of what made the first one so hard is I had two business partners that died in a plane crash. So they died in June of 2006. And then we have 2008 happen. That's back to back pretty severe things. And so after 10 years of nothing but growth, I had my first down year in 2008, which meant hard decisions that I wasn't really, I was in my late 20s. I wasn't really mature enough to figure it out. It's hard to let go of people and, hard to like manage cash flow. So I got deeper into debt during that time. I got to the other side. I was like, all right, we're going to build a program that we can do the services. But the second failure point was very similar. We just couldn't take on a lot of clients because it was so much to manage. And I tried to build technology to support it, and it became bloated and was like a sunk cost that I spent too much time and money on for too long. So we ended up kind of creating a program that was a little bit more affordable, but it also meant not as good of results. And so as that time went on, I was getting frustrated because we had 3 levels of programs. One was, I thought, a ineffective program. It was like $200 a month. I'm teaching once a month. They have a library of resources. It's not getting results. People are paying for it because it's so inexpensive, but it's like hurting my soul, because if someone's like, I'm in your program, I'm like, which one? And how's it going? Because it just was too one to many and not enough personalization, which finance requires. And then the middle program was okay if we had someone that was a self-starter and they just were willing to do the work and they're willing to take the steps in between. But a lot of entrepreneurs get busy. They just have a lot on their plate. And the program that was working really well just hit constraints as soon as like 95 to 100 people got in it. And my partners were like, we don't want to do that program anymore. But that was like my little baby darling I loved. I knew if someone was in that program, they were going to be happy. They were going to say good things about us. But the attorneys would cap out. The accountants would cap out. And then all of a sudden when tax season came, it was like, are we going to be able to get everything done on time? Which meant we weren't as proactive as I wanted to be. So that's the 2 times it didn't work. And it meant I sold one of those companies because I was like, well, what am I going to do? And it was kind of tormenting for me to sell it because it was something that I felt very connected to. And I sold it because I just couldn't see eye to eye with one of the partners. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to sell it. I'm going to do comedy because it was a passion of mine. Got my comedy special on Amazon.
I was going to bring this up because when I heard that the last time we connected, I was like, really? You're going to do comedy now? And you just went and did that? So yeah, take us through the jaunt into comedy and then back. That's great.
Yeah, so like I want to do comedy probably since I was 5 years old because we had 2 different families. We had this Catholic side of my family on my mom's side, and they were hysterical. My uncles were funny. My mom had an infectious laugh. And I would retell jokes that were inappropriate, but they laughed and I didn't get in trouble. The other side of my family was Mormon. Like my grandfather was a bishop and my dad, he wasn't that active, but my uncles were hysterical there and I could get away with saying totally inappropriate things and not get in trouble. So it was like this connection point, right? And I was speaking at an event in 2014 and they had us write a letter. Like I just attended the whole thing of something we've always wanted to do, but never did. So I wrote, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. Well, it took me till we went to Italy for a summer in 2017. I had a lot of downtime. I'm like, I came home, my first speech, someone introduced me as being hysterical. And I was like, dude, I'm giving a financial talk. And they said I'm hysterical. I should tell some jokes. And enough of the crowd thought I was funny that I just called my comedian buddy. I was like, hey, dude, can you be at my office tomorrow at 5? He's like, why? I'm like, I have an idea. I want to do stand-up. And I want you to work on these jokes with me so I don't bomb. And we sat there for 2 hours. My youngest son was laughing hysterically. I went home, told my wife the joke. She's like, those aren't ready. You're going to embarrass me. Kind of. She said, I don't think you're as funny as you think you are. I was like, babe, these people are laughing. She's like, you're making them money. They're being nice. But she was still there in the front row and my open mic went phenomenal. And these 2 guys that I knew were like, hey, you want to start opening for us? So I just was like, as a hobby, opening for them. And then when I knew I was going to sell my business, I happened to open for them when they filmed their special. And in the crowd was this guy, Barry Katz, who has managed some of the biggest comedians of all time. And he's like, I think you have what it takes. I was like, really? It's a kind of, had a good set that night for sure. And it was a big crowd. I was like, I don't know. And he's like, well, let's just start talking. And so he got me like a guy that wrote jokes for Chris Rock to coach me. And after a year, I was like, all right, let's do it. So we decided to do a comedy special and I funded it. And we got 8 Emmy winners on the crew. It was one of my favorite nights of my life. I did 4 hours that night because we did 2 sets, 2 different shows. And in 2024, we got it on Amazon Prime. But after I did that, I did 2 comedy tours. And I'm not built for the road and telling jokes. Like it's fun on stage, but the rest of it isn't fun. And I've been too pampered as an entrepreneur that I could have a better lifestyle than that. So I kind of, when I checked that box in 23, I was having some kidney issues. I was, separating from, I sold my business, but had a licensing deal and I was cutting that off, which meant 7 figures of income was going away. And I just was lost. But I took my time, which was the hardest thing to do. Just sit and think and be like, what's next for me? And I was like, I've always wanted to build a family office because when I was in my early 20s, I went to New York, saw a family office for the first time as a fly on the wall. And I was like, what's that? They're like, oh, it's low tier. You got to be worth $30 million. So I'm like, low tier? in my hometown, there's not even anyone worth that amount of money. And I was like, I need to bring this to entrepreneurs that are doing like 350,000 and up. Who's serving the people between 350,000 and 10 million? Almost no one. And fortunately, AI and technology has massively advanced.
Mm-hmm.
And I built relationships for 20 to 30 years because, like, the CPA I partnered with, we went to college together. The attorney I
Mm-hmm.
partnered with has been my attorney for 23 years, written 3 amazing books. And so they partnered with me last year so we could provide these services in house very affordably. Because of AI and technology, we can have all conversations complete, recorded inside of a system, analyze everything. And what would normally take us 20, maybe 30 hours to build, we can build in 20 to 30 minutes for a client. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, we can really help a lot of people now instead of capped out at 100. Like right now, we're pretty new. We probably have 180 clients, but there's zero constraint. We don't have any like problems with that. In the 2 years, we've had one person ask for a refund. We've had a second person have one issue. Like it's just, that's
and your
unheard
ability
of
to
in my
scale
old
at
days.
that is like endless now.
Yeah,
right?
I could keep
your ability
scaling. I mean, I just have to, one major person can really service 50 to 60 clients as their quarterback, their financial, person, and organize all this. And because of the technology, we aren't burdening because we're gathering the documents. The CPA is not having to do that. We're filling out the questionnaires. The attorney's not having to do that. And we can have the attorney teach them through an AI bot instead of the attorney saving $600 an hour, and then just have them look at a file for few minutes because everything's outlined, redlined, and shown. And so it's like, man, we can offer these services for $500 a month to no more than $5,000 a month. And now they're getting all their taxes filed on time. We're proactive. We're already right now as we film this, it's July. We're already doing most tax strategy for this year, where most people usually don't start till October if they feel like it's early, or December when it becomes chaos, or worst case, next year when they've lost most of their advantages. So it's been hard to build, but worth it because it's like, this is what I've always wanted to have.
No, that's awesome. And so I want to dig into a number of things around this. Obviously, I'm in that space. I have a big tax planning software company that I run and that I'm a co-owner in. And so look, we're going to take just a quick 1 minute break. I'm going to come back. I want to dig into exactly what you're doing and how you optimize around this. So if I'm a business owner sitting out there right now, they will understand exactly what it is that like they get through something like this and why it's important. And then we'll add some flair to that and go into some of the other entrepreneurs side of the journey. So we'll take that quick break. We'll be right back. Misfit entrepreneurs, I want to tell you about an amazing resource that will have tremendous impact on your business and your revenue. I have used this solution in multiple businesses and it has made an incredible difference. Let me start by asking you something. Do you know how much it costs your business when just one salesperson doesn't step up to deliver? Do you really know? The cost can easily exceed 6 figures for just one bad hire, not just from the time, effort, and resources in hiring them, but from the lost business and downtime as well, as you have to go find a new salesperson and everything surrounding that. And the last thing any growing business can afford is to have a failed hire, especially in sales, the revenue driver for the company. But what if there was a way to know someone checked all the boxes of a great sales hunter and closer before you ever hired them? That's the solution that I found from a company called Sales Drive. They have created a solution called Drive Test. It's a powerful hiring tool that separates high-performance salespeople from pretenders by measuring the most critical personality trait needed for success in sales: drive. Drive is composed of 3 non-teachable traits shared by all top producers: the need for achievement, competitiveness, and optimism. And knowing who has drive before the interview dramatically increases your chances of selecting salespeople who will produce for you while avoiding those costly bad hires. I've used the solution and it works. In fact, it works so well, I've referred them to every company that I work with. And they've created a very special offer so that you can try them for free as well. You can get a free drive test assessment today at www.misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive, all one word. Start using the drive test in your hiring and never hire a bad salesperson again. All right, so Garrett, what I want to talk about is exactly like the service that you're doing with Multiplier, right? And like if I'm a $350,000 business owner, $500,000 business owner, whatever, if I utilize this, what's it going to do for me? What do I get? At the same time, and it's kind of a two-parter. And you may start with this because I've realized this over time. I haven't been fortunate to speak with 23 billionaires, but a couple through over the years. And you say things like the ultra wealthy aren't smarter than the average business owner. They just have a coordinated team, right? I believe that true too. It's actually about the team and the way you structure things and put in place. You don't have to be smarter. So like start there and explain that, and then take us into how that relates to what somebody gets like when they're utilizing Multiplier.
Smaller entrepreneurs have a deep burden of doing too much on their own. So it constrains their time. And one of the things that they're typically doing on their own is trying to manage their finances. So they're like the middle management and they're the go between. So they're trying to explain what the accountant said to the attorney and then not translating it well. And the attorney feels threatened by what the accountant's saying. And it's like this jumbled thing. So what does the entrepreneur do? They just move on. They just go, I'm just going to focus on my business because it's what I know. So these pieces get undone. So I can't even tell you how many people we see, they just have the wrong corporation. They're literally going to exit a business in the future, and they're not a C corporation, which can give them $15 million tax free per partner.
Yep.
And even if they add a trust or their kids or their wife, we have one guy that just exited for $70 million, zero tax on that exit. But if they don't know about Section 1202 in a C corp, they are an LLC.
And that's called a qualified small business deduction.
Exactly. And they just don't know. Or let's say they're not going to exit their business and they have no partners and they're an LLC. Why are they an LLC, not an S corp? Because they can maximize dividends versus salary. They can maximize the qualified business deduction with Section 199A, taking 20% off the top. Again, they just don't know because it's not being talked to them, because maybe their attorney's drafting what the corporation is, but they're not a tax attorney or they're not a CPA or tax strategist. So they're just going, hey, this is what we set up. And then they just end up paying the price for it. So we're going in, all they have to do is upload their documents. When they upload their documents, we're already analyzing the documents in real time because of the tools that we built that continue to get smarter because of the business brain that we built. So every time something is new, the system learns it and looks and says, are there other clients this could apply to? Everyone's got their own safe, structure. It's not bleeding, but the intelligence spreads. So every time something happens, it starts to trigger and say, hey, this would apply to these 7 other people. So now we know to bring that up. So like we did a call on Monday, and normally, 20, 30 hours of prep work was about 30 minutes. Within 5 minutes, we had already told them about $10,000 of tax savings. We haven't even gotten to the big stuff like entity selection, how they pay themselves. It was just like really simple things. They were looking to do like something for their kids, and they hadn't even done an HSA. And I'm like, why are you going to do this kid account that's just tax deferred when you can have something that's completely tax free? All they knew about was flexible spending. Or they were sitting in money markets. I'm like, if you move that to treasuries that are really short term, you're not going to pay the state tax, which is 9.9%. It just spits it out for us. Like, okay, so in a few minutes, we've already saved 10 grand before we've even got to the big pieces. And they don't have to go do a bunch of work because we already have the systems. If they're going to rent out their home to their business, we already have the analysis. We already have the drafting. We already have all that done. So they sign it and it's done, instead of, hey, here's this strategy. Okay, I guess I got to go figure out how to do the strategy. And how do I know? That's where all this gets lost if they just look at social media. So it's so helpful. And the fact is, like, I just had the attorney training my entire team on Monday for an hour. Here's the fundamentals. Here's the basics. Here's the things to look for. He's still going to have his eyes on everything that happens, but in an hour, he can look at 10 files instead of one file. It's a game changer,
Yep.
And he saw the writing on the wall. He realized he's in trouble as an attorney down the road. We're getting way ahead of it. He's telling me there's attorneys still drafting in Word Perfect, not even using a single ounce of AI. I'm like, why? It just opens up the opportunity. We have people that are paying $3,000 a month for poor tax planning. We're like, we're going to get your entire financial house in order for $3,000 a month, including that. So it just makes it so efficient.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I don't think a lot of people, most entrepreneurs don't realize. There's 20,000 strategies in the tax code, so 80-some thousand pages. And now, again, of those 20,000 strategies, a lot of them aren't going to pertain to the 99% of entrepreneurs, right?
Right.
A strategy that works once every 10 years for a specific scenario, if you're 10 million above, that those exist, but that's not what.
And that's why 10 million is kind of our cutoff, right? Because we know that requires more research and one-on-one. And so we're like, great, we refer that to another firm because they're literally hiring one person every time they take on a new client, and they're capped at 100 clients.
But there are, like you said, there's a ton of different ones. There's several hundred ones that can pertain to everyday use. And so there's, even things like the Augusta rule. People don't even know about the Augusta rule and things like
Right.
that. So just for those watching, the Augusta rule, and this is not financial advice, talk to your CPA, disclaimer, all that fun stuff. But like the Augusta rule, it was created because of the people that live on the Augusta golf course where they do the Masters. Yep. And what it does is let you rent out your house for business purposes at the going rates in your area for up to 14 days a year. So, for example, if you, and it is specific to the types of businesses you have to employees and some of those things. But let's say you're an S Corp with 2 employees and you normally have strategy meetings. If you hold them at your house, you can effectively charge the going rate in your area for like a meeting room at a nice hotel, which might be $1,200 a day or $1,500. And your business can basically pay you that money. And you, as an individual, as long as it's 14 days or under, can keep that money tax-free. And so it's a deduction to your business that the income effectively goes straight to you and there's no tax on it. So it's a way to, in some cases, $20,000, $30,000 just tax-free in your pocket, for something that simple for doing things you already do. There's a ton of these out there, and so you guys probably do that, but there's probably a number of other ones. And unfortunately, we probably could do 10 episodes on all the different ones that there are. But for an entrepreneur that is listening who wants to build real lasting wealth and a legacy like for their family, like what is the first move that you would tell them to do this week? Like what would you tell them to do?
Well, they've got to have visibility and organization. With no visibility, a lot of money slips through the cracks. And I feel like the 4 main areas that they lose money is one, tax is one of the biggest line items they're going to have as they start to make more money. And most of them at least overpay by 50% once they're making real money, just because they're not using much. They're using historians, not strategists. The second thing is interest. When people are poor, they pay much higher interest rates than when people are wealthy. And it's because when you have assets as collateral, you can get loans. We've had clients get loans 1.5% against their business stock. It's like, that is so cheap because we could put it in a treasury and earn more than that 1.5%, and even how they structure their loans, just those 2 areas. I did a study on What Would the Rockefellers Do, one of my most popular books. What if people could double the return on their retirement plan, or they could just do the strategies for loans and taxes? What would it look like? And in most cases, they'll be 400% further ahead by saving tax and interest than doubling the return on the retirement account. And the one's cash flow today, the other one's deferred till they're retired. So it's much more usable for a business. The third area is just on investments. A lot of people have hidden fees, commissions, structure. They just don't see it, right? They set up a plan that has so much fat in the plan, 12B1 fees, which are marketing fees for the funds, expense ratios that aren't going to outperform index funds, admin fees, legal fees, all that kind of stuff. We had a firm that was paying 3.2% on their retirement plan. I'm like, the difference between earning 9.2 and 10% over 30 years on 100 grand is 340 grand. 340 grand. So it's like big thing. And the last one is insurance. A lot of people have really poor structure to their insurance. I look at only insure catastrophic, not inconsequential, and you pay less money because the last dollar of insurance is a lot cheaper than the first dollar because the first dollar is likely to happen. The last dollar is catastrophic, less likely to happen. So when they have enough liquidity, we redesign that in a way that, even bigger businesses can set up their own insurance agency, and then they can eliminate a lot of the lower fees. And then if they don't have a claim, they keep the cash, and the cash is capital gains instead of ordinary income, which is another 17% advantage. So those 4 areas are the biggest areas that we look at first before someone invests $1, before they lock another dollar away. And then I think the second biggest issue is they just don't invest enough into their infrastructure, their business, because they feel guilty about not putting more money in their retirement. And so often they're starving out their business with really good money to fund something they can't touch for an extraordinary long period of time. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have the wealth engine, but people make them feel guilty. And it's like Microsoft doesn't say, hey, we're sitting on extra cash, we're going to put it in the S&P 500. But the average small business owner goes, I have extra cash, I'm going to put it in the S&P 500. Why? Is your business where you want it to be? Like if they hired you, they're a software company, what they're going to do is they're going to massively increase their EBITDA. They're going to increase the value of the business. They're not going to be so stuck as the founder inside of the business, so they can have that scale and growth. And you can grow that better than any of the big 500 stocks because it's a smaller entity that has a lot more upside. Because it's really hard to make $1 trillion, $2 trillion. It's a lot easier to make $1 million, $2 million. It just is, because it's a big saturation when you have that much in a market, right? So those are probably the biggest mistakes I see people make. And then I guess the other thing is that they just kind of are intimidated by money and finance. So they think, I'll just make more money. But if you make more money while your buckets are leaking, you're actually kind of treading water a little bit, and you can plug those leaks and get further faster without the risk.
Yeah, those are great points. And yeah, a lot of times the best investment is investing back in yourself. In fact, this is stuff, years ago, I remember when we first talked and had you on the show, you talked about like in killing sacred cows, and you just covered some of that stuff. Are there any other sacred cows? Like let's do the abridged version from now to then, right? What are the new sacred cows, right? That are like entrepreneurs are clinging to like the most in 2026 that is costing them. Anything else in addition to that? What you just shared?
I think that this summarizes half of the book in this one formula. Most people believe that wealth is a function of accumulating, which means no cash flow, set it into a one-dimensional account, wait for 30 years because compound interest is supposed to be a miracle. So they think, hey, high risk equals high return. No, risk means chance of losing, and the less you know about the money, the more risky it is. It takes money to make money. Well, not in business. It takes value creation, service, solving problems. There's ways to do it. And then they think you're in it for the long haul. So they wait for too long. Like, can you imagine someone's initiating a marketing campaign? They're like, we're just going to put money in the marketing campaign and 30 years from today, see how it went. You're just going to burn money. But that's how people invest. I believe in velocity, which is it's simply what's our output divided by our input. How do we keep inputs fixed and increase output? Well, most of finance says budget. But budget means that you're starving something else out because you're not putting money into it in order to have more money in the future. What if there's two better ways? Be more efficient, which was the 4 I's, IRS, interest, investments, insurance, so plug leaks. Or what you do, help them expand their means. Where can they expand their means? It could be hiring. It could be infrastructure. It could be leveraging AI. It could be improving their sales and their marketing. Like it's really looking at it. And I think part of it is business owners that are smaller are kind of afraid to do that because they're like, what if this doesn't work? And what if I lose money? Well, you will lose money when you're doing a business. It's part of the process. You make mistakes, but you can make adjustments. When you lose money in investments you don't understand, like if you get over leveraged in real estate and you don't understand it, you kind of lose without a lot of lesson. It's just lost money. And it's not just lost money because it's lost for as long as you have that asset until you can exit it. And if it's a bad market, you might hold on to it a lot longer than you want. And it then distracts you from growing your business because now you're trying to manage this negative real estate portfolio because you were red, rich, dad, poor dad, There's a lot of people that end up more poor than rich following that methodology, So I kind of feel that I believe in investor DNA. Like have your business and then have an asset class that you understand to take money out of the business to create business wealth and personal wealth. So you're not just letting the business gobble up all funds, but don't go diversify into a bunch of things you don't understand before you funded the fundamentals of the business. And that right there will change people's lives drastically.
No, great point too. And great points, I should say. The one point that I want to highlight, you mentioned, and this is extremely important, is velocity of money. And most people hear that, they think they know what it means, but every dollar that sits idle is losing money. Like most people don't realize, they feel it, but they don't like have it quantified. Literally $100,000 today buys the same as about $73,000 10 years ago. That's how much your money's lost value in 10 years.
Your battery's going down on your iPhone, even if you don't use it.
Exactly. And so every dollar that sits idle, right? Currency needs to move. And so every dollar that sits idle is losing. And the truth is, if you're not actually making at least 7% on your money in that range, you're actually losing. So not even like treasury level, like 7%. Because of the velocity of the loss of the money, right? So your velocity of your money needs to move faster. So like you have to look at it like, how do I put every single dollar to work? And one thing Kiyosaki did have right is savers are losers.
Yep,
because
totally.
Emergency fund's one thing, okay, but every dollar outside of that isn't compounding and has velocity is just losing. And so you really have to figure out how you're going to get your velocity of money right, like pick the vehicle, like you said, and do that stuff. And it's not something anybody thinks about, right? They just go, man, why does it seem like everything costs so much more, right? And that's not going to stop. Yep. We're 40 trillion in debt as a country. We're still the greatest country in the world and the engine for the world. But still, because of that, the dollar is going to just continue to lose value. Last anecdote If you've never gone, and you have, I know, but if you've never gone to the website WTF happened in 1971, go there and just go scroll through the charts and see why the dollar's lost 98% of its value since 1971. And you'll understand like that velocity, right? So
1913 and 1971 are two important dates. 1913, two things happened. One, we introduced the tax system,
income tax,
but we also introduced fractionalized banking, which meant that a bank can lend a dollar out more than once, and it averages 6 or 7 times, which is part of the inflation equation, is that we have dollars circulating more than once in the same year being spent. So when it's lost, it's exaggerated, and we were taxing. And then when we went away from the gold standard, that was the next thing, and we became a fiat currency. Those two things really devalue it, which also, interestingly, for the right person and the right mindset, means that borrowing money could be your advantage if you're creating cash flow with it, because your loans benefit from inflation, your wages suffer from inflation. And a lot of people fight me on that. I know you won't, but like they just go, what do you mean? Like, I'm like, well, if I have a 30-year mortgage, 15 years from now, that's going to feel like half the payment, even though it's the same, because wages keep going up. But also, we're going to have a situation that inflation increases taxation because you start having to make more to purchase the same things, so you enter the higher tax bracket sooner. And all of a sudden, you're getting a higher percentage taken from you if you're not really good at tax strategy. And that's what's a beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur, is you get a great tax advantage. Like owning a business is one of the best ways to protect against inflation, because you can adjust prices. It's a good way to adjust against taxes because you have a lot of advantages. We've mentioned a few of them. It's also three-dimensional because you can have enterprise value that grows. The more cash flow that comes in that doesn't require your daily involvement, the more enterprise value you typically have with tax advantage. So most people think of 401k as a tax advantage. It's not. You're deferring your taxes, and you have to pay it when you pull it out if it's not a Roth. And they're like, yeah, but I'll have my money have compounded more. Yeah, but if I start with $10,000, if I take it out today and I'm 59 and a half, I'm in a 30% tax bracket, I get to keep 7. If 10 years from now it's at $20,000, I don't get to take out 20,000 and only pay, or take out 17 and only pay 3 to the government. I still have to pay 6,000. So it didn't change that the rate at which it grew, if I'm talking about pulling all of it out. And people just, again, they don't understand that because they go, no, this is a tax advantage. I once had someone that's savvy and smart. I was on their podcast and they said, you should put your money in a retirement plan and take the tax advantage and buy Garrett's programs. I'm like, how are they going to do that? The money's not in their pocket. It's stuck in a plan. It's income deferral. They have to pay tax if they go to spend it. And what I find is most retirement plans have a negative rate of return because people won't spend the money. So it doesn't matter if there's millions there. If they're not going to take it out because they hate paying the tax, it might as well not have existed because it didn't benefit
Well, don't
them.
forget about the fees, because the fees add up too.
Right, because it's not just the fees of the funds, it's also the fees of the admin and the legal. And, back when I started in 1998, they didn't have to disclose those fees. There was years where they had no disclosure of fees, and it had to be legislation passed to disclose it. And when they finally passed the legislation, I subscribed to the Wall Street Journal. It was on the back page of the Journal, not even a front page thing. But we're talking about billions of dollars lost,
And, while we're on this, because you talk about, we're kind of in it, like talking about becoming financially fit, then independent, then free. So define like free, right?
So to me, free is a state of mind.
Okay.
It's like money's no longer the primary reason or excuse you do or don't do something. It's a consideration, but it's not the consideration. You put value first. Do I value this? What's the economic cost second? And then what's the price third? Price is what you pay, but the cost is the net effect. If you spend $1,000 on a tax attorney and they save you $100,000, you're still $99,000 ahead, even though $1,000 an hour might seem like a lot of money, right? And the value is you now have cash. Where a lot of people are kind of in the saver's mindset, so they think if I could just reduce my expenses, I can save more money, even though they're losing to inflation, even though they may be locking their money away. So we kind of have to look at freedom as being able to be present, being able to enjoy life. It's a state of mind. I mean, there's people that might be financially free that aren't even millionaires, and there might be millionaires that will never be financially free because of how they, Northwestern Mutual did a study. Only 32% of millionaires feel wealthy. One, we can look at $1 million isn't what $1 million used to be, is part of it. And the second is if they've gotten an investment account, they're only living off the interest. they might only be getting 40 grand of taxable money from that. That doesn't feel like wealth. That feels like the poverty line for a lot of people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's part of the situation too. So, price, cost, value. And when you start with value first, and when money is not the primary reason or excuse, it's just a consideration, not the only consideration. That's what I would say is financial freedom.
Yeah, and money is in the end is money, the taxes, all that's a tool that you can use to your advantage if you learn how to wield it. And that's the
Yes.
challenge, is that most never learn how to wield it. And that's and it weaves to one of the other points you make. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it because I think people get that, is that like so many people defer life. They defer all the good years and the times they can be doing things to get to be free on the other side, and then they don't have the ability to enjoy it because they spend all of it during that. Where if they do the right things right, they can have it now and have that, have some of that, the free that you talk about, right? Not sacrifice 30 years for someday. That's the old mentality.
My biggest gripe with financial planning is it doesn't consider quality of life now. It considers money when you're old, not enjoying it. And it might even get people to stop investing in themselves, not having experiences, lowering their energy, being so cheap they don't take care of their health, being miserly. And that mindset will limit growth.
And the thing that I think people have to consider is we have to stop thinking about retirement as this like end all, and you just like are, you're hanging out there and like you're going to live off this money. People are going to live longer and longer. I mean, you talk about AI and the technology for health and everything are going to be like, I truly believe we're going to see people living to 150. Like, I absolutely think the technology is going to be there to help do that. And so it's about having cash flow. It's about having ways that you can have that cash flow continue more than anything else. And that's where I don't think people are thinking about that, and I think that's where the rubber is going to meet the road in the future, is we're going to hit this point, because Social Security as of right now is bankrupt in 2029. Every year kind of goes down a little bit.
It's already bankrupt because they borrow every dollar out.
They borrowed all the money out of it. Yeah, it's all gone. Yeah. It's a bunch of IOUs. But the point in the end is, and I don't say that to scare people, if you're like, hey, I'm banking on Social Security, some of it may be there, but they're already talking about a huge reduction in benefits, or even a big jump in the age. And so you can't necessarily rely on that as your benefit. Plus, it's not much for most people. It's maybe a few $1,000s. Right. So it's like, how do you build the cash flow streams now that can continue into the future for you? And nothing's guaranteed, right? So you have to be able to adapt. But I mean, I'm not asking for an answer, but I think that's the question people need to be asking and thinking about.
That's why I think recurring revenue and financial independence should replace retirement. When I can have recurring revenue that covers my lifestyle, I'm work optional, and I can just take some trips along the way. I can enjoy life along the way, which will extend my ability to work in the future because I'm not wearing myself so thin. I'm sure you've met many people that work so hard on their EBITDA increasing that their family hates them and they hate themselves because they just grind it out and don't think about the ramifications. And the problem with that is you can't buy back the memories you don't have. And so, if you train everyone in your life that work is the highest priority, when you finally so-called retire, they're not going to be around to enjoy it with you because they're going to be working so hard at that time. Where are you going to go? And it's not like people retire and flip a switch and be like, okay, I haven't taken trips, I haven't done anything I want, but now that I'm retired and I don't have any control of the outcome of my income because it's just investments creating it, and I didn't create cash flow with those investments because I was accumulating, now I'm going to go do all this stuff. I think a lot of people end up doing a lot less than they expect because they're afraid of, will I outlive my money? And it's kind of a weird model to think, hey, if you just save 10% of your income for 30 years, then you can take 30 years off. How is compound interest going to make up for the 90%? It's not that strong. It's not as good as people think. It takes, I would say it this way, compounding skills outperform compounding interest. You're living proof of it. Your compounded skills, you could predictably do things for companies that you know what the result's going to be because of a skill set you've developed, that you know how to analyze where the weak points are, where the constraints are, what to do about that, and watch that growth. I don't know about you. I can't really just buy an individual stock and be like, this is the one, and it's going to be 30 years from now, this is going to be where it's at. Like, I don't know. There's too many unknown variables. I have no control. I'm not in the board meetings. I'm just guessing to agree. Maybe it's an educated guess, but a lot of things that people think are going to work out don't work out because they have zero influence over it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's the one thing nice about being a business owner is you do have influence over it.
Exactly.
You actually have, like, a lot of people are like, a job with somebody is safe and it's secure. It's actually not. I mean, you can just look at the next layoff headline. But having a business where you actually can control the effort, the inputs, the things that, to not everything, nothing is totally controllable in life, but even more than typically an employee can. You actually control the outcome more. That's my argument. As an entrepreneur, you actually control the outcome more. And the way the whole system is designed for you, nothing happens without entrepreneurship. The government doesn't get a tax dollar without entrepreneurship. Right? It's not like you just exist and tax dollars flow. The business has to be created that, it creates the W-2, and that's the highest form of taxation that then gets from those paychecks to the government. And the incentives, as we talked about, there's 20,000 different strategies in the tax code incentivizing, the producers and like entrepreneurs to be able to do that more. And so the sad thing is that we don't teach it, and that the society keeps it almost like kept as a secret from those that go through normal schooling and all that type of stuff, because it's set up to, the system's set up to make people employees. That's just the way that the thing is right now. Yeah. So
that's how John Dewey designed it.
It's one of the reasons I love what you're doing and wanted to have you back on. So, but go ahead.
Yeah, John Dewey designed it for people to, become employees, but through going through school. And then I hear an argument all the time, they should teach finances in school more. And I'm like, well, let's pause on that for a minute. Do you want someone that's paid a salary, and no matter how good they are at what they do, the only way to increase that salary is typically more education, not more value, because they're just simply in the system? Do you want them teaching money because they believe that money is something outside of their control and influence? It's just what the system gives you. So they're going to basically unintentionally teach socialism, or they're only going to use math. And money and math can kind of describe money, but it's not the same thing, right? Like, we could have this math show us what numbers are going to be on a projection, but in the reality of someone's life, I see all these videos. They upset me every day. They get me a little bit fired up, get me passionate about what I'm doing. Hey, if you're 20 years old and you start with $100 a month, 40 years from now, you'll be a millionaire. Okay, a millionaire that can't spend $1 million because then you don't have the interest coming off it. Did you have no change over that 40 years? Where are you putting that money? Like, there's just so many unknown variables, and they act like it's just an equation, not considering inflation, not considering fees. It's just like, that's frustrating to me because they're narrowing it down, acting like people aren't smart enough to figure it out. And they think that, like, if wealth is just a game of discipline, why wasn't my coal mining family more wealthy? Because that takes discipline to go into a coal mine every day and to mine coal. That's hard work, but hard work with the wrong philosophy still equals limitation or bankruptcy or frustration.
You have to have the right vehicle. Hard work is awesome if you've got the right vehicle. Hard and smart work. It's not just hard work. Unfortunately, it's hard work does pay off, but it's got to be smart and it's got to have the right vehicle. Last question before we get to your Misfit 3. I wanted to ask this since the beginning because of the comedy side. Lessons that you learned from doing the comedy tour that you think translate really well to business.
So you're only funny when you're present. So if I have a joke that doesn't land, the likelihood is I'm in my head thinking about something instead of just saying what I'm thinking. Because usually the first thought's the funniest. And if I'm trying too hard or I'm in my head, like I remember I did a really bad practice the night before we filmed the special, really bad. Because I was tired and I was in my head being like, should I do all these jokes and which one? And it was flat. So I just made a deal with myself the next morning. I'm like, whatever comes in my head, I'm saying it because we could always edit it out. So literally, I was like, oh, my cousin's here. Oh, hey, my son just yawned. How does that feel? Like, and I was just so open and present. Someone was laughing so hard. I just started talking to him because that's where my mind went. And the funniest moments are when they're real in the moment, not pre-planned. Like if you watch, why do people love crowd work? Because there's a little danger to it, but you're also participating with your audience and you're co-creating the laughter versus just speaking to them. And so just being present is the best way to be creative. It's the best way to be productive in business. And when we're overly distracted because there's too much going on and not focused, we lose our power. And a lot of the problem for a business owner is we lose focus because something gets difficult. So we try to have an outlet that seems easy. So this next investment that sounds like, oh, we should do that. It's a disruption just because, like look at how many investments aren't good investments, but the media promotes and hypes and SpaceX may be good long term, but it's down 35%. I didn't invest in SpaceX because I knew it was a hype cycle. Everyone's like, we're going to leave our crypto, go to this because we're going to get rich just by doing something for nothing. We're going to put our money there, but we have no control over what happens. And it's like, do they know if it's going to make it or not? I don't know. They're like, it's the highest price to earnings ever in the history of a stock. And, maybe they'll get there. Elon definitely makes me feel more confident, but the reality is I'm more confident in my business because I can make adjustments, because I have some influence. But the thing is, I have to own my own mistakes. I have to own and course correct, where sometimes when we invest in things we don't know, it's a force correction. So lack of focus on stage is not funny. Not just acknowledging. If I tell a joke that isn't funny, I'm just going to acknowledge it. And I'm just going to joke about how it wasn't funny and tell the crowds with me before I move on. I remember being on tour and there was 3 drunk girls. They were so loud and I didn't address it. And it just made for the rest of the set. It didn't go very well because I didn't address it. Just if you address what's actually happening, you can course correct. If you don't address and ignore it, it costs you. And that's the same in business.
That is an excellent way to end it, and a great piece of wisdom and advice. Before we get to your Misfit 3, and so I can't wait to see what those are. So we're going to take just one more 1-minute break. We'll be right back with Garrett's Misfit 3.
Misfits. People ask me all the time about tools that I use in my life and business to maximize my success. I usually start by telling them one of my most powerful tools is my morning habits. And of course, they look at me somewhat confused. I then explain how important it is for me to center myself and how I begin my day and plan for my success. It's critical to consistent high performance. And it doesn't take me long, about 5 or 10 minutes, because I use a great resource called the 5-Minute Journal. The 5-Minute Journal is the simplest, most effective way I've ever found to start your day in the right mindset, doing the right things, and set yourself up for success. And it is exactly what it says, a 5-minute exercise you can do each day. Let me ask you, if you could reach your next level in your life and business by spending just 5 minutes of focused time a day, would you do it? I bet you would. And I know it works because I've experienced the power of it. And you can get your 5-minute journal simply by going to www.misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. Do what I do. Use this amazing resource to give yourself an edge in your performance and your success. Get your 5-minute journal today.
Okay, it's time for Garrett's Misfit 3. These are the 3 things that he wants you to take that you can put into your life, your business, make a difference for yourself starting today. And the way that I always frame this to every guest that comes on the show is I say, hey, look, if you're going to leave this earth tomorrow and you can only leave behind your 3 best pieces of wisdom for the generations to come after you, what would those 3 things be? So, Garrett, what are your Misfit 3?
First thing is, the more love you give, the more love you could receive. And there is no limitation. It's the most abundant thing that's out there. And most people hold back because they're afraid that they won't get the reciprocation. And you might not in every situation, but if you always show up that way, you're going to have the type of people you want in your life long term. That's the first one.
Okay. Second one?
Second one is design a game worth playing, and you've already won. The actual process is the win. The journey is the win. Don't just get addicted to outcomes. And the third one, the biggest riches in the world are in relationships. If you have great relationships, life is worth it, and no amount of money can compensate for loneliness.
Oh, excellent. I love all 3 of those, especially that last one. If people do want to learn more about you and everything you're doing, where should they go?
If you want daily nuggets, I drop 3-4 videos a day on Instagram, Garrett B. Gunderson. I do a video a week on YouTube at youtube.com/Garrett Gunderson. And my website is garrettgunderson.com. So you can jump into the newsletter if you want 5 minutes a week of some wisdom that's similar to what we talked about today to master your money and those other things, just as little nuggets and insights.
Excellent. We'll link to all that in the show notes so that people can find it. The best in the business for reasons I will talk about more in a second. But first, for those of you that are new to the Misfit Entrepreneurs, your first episode with us, welcome. It's such a awesome, wonderful thing to have you listening for the first time. And I hope you become a regular subscriber of the show. And those of you that are with us week in and week out, I cannot thank you enough for your support of the show. You are what makes this go in over 100 countries every single week. So thank you for spreading the word and supporting us. And go out and check out those show notes. We're redoing some things on those actually, and so they're going to be coming actually back up bigger and better than ever. And so check those out, because that's where I actually go back through these episodes and I take the best piece of wisdom, the insights, the things that I really think are important from like great guests like Garrett say, and then share them with you. So check those out. And then go out and give this episode a rating and review, like and comment on it. Help share Garrett's message, because we all know, and I say this in every episode, one great episode can change someone's life. Maybe something that Garrett shared today was that missing link you were looking for to get to your next level. So share this with others. And again, Garrett, thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your wisdom and insight today.
Dave, thanks for having me, man. Really enjoyed it.